Hello and welcome. To those of you who haven't tuned in before, my name is Charles Wall. I am the founder and owner of A1K9. We are a specialist dog training company based in South Wales, just outside of Swansea, specialising ultimately in the training and supply of family and personal protection dogs to people literally all around the globe. We also offer a plethora of other dog-related services, ranging from obedience training right the way through to, as I said, training and supplying protection dogs. We do some behavioural consultation work. Anything dog-related, we are probably likely to be able to help you with it. For those of you, again, who haven't tuned in, I'm joined by my colleague here, Lee, one of my trainers from A1K9. Lee, I think, has got a few questions he wants to ask me this afternoon, hoping that I'm going to have the answers ready for him. And in the background, we have got Kira, who is not on camera, but she is driving the video and audio setup and making sure the technology all behaves itself, whatever. I have been threatening for weeks now on our Facebook Lives that we typically do on a Thursday evening, that we would get our little podcasting area set up and sorted, and looks like we're more or less there. We're just ironing out a few little glitches with some of the technology, but other than that, I think we are good to go on the start of our, I suppose, sustained YouTube journey. Lee, over to you.
Yeah, again, it's great to be in the new studio. Finally glad to be in here. So as you've mentioned today, we're just going to run through a few things, chat about yourself, and also A1K9, the UK's oldest and leading providers of personal and family protection dogs to high net worth individuals and famous people, some to include Nigel Mansell, Formula One legend, to name but a few. So without further ado, Charles, I'd like to just ask a few things that I think that people have mentioned in the comments on our lives, and also have come and spoke to me while they've been here at the facilities with us. People have shown a lot of interest in who you actually are. So if we start there, if you tell us a little bit about your younger years and your growing up, if you can.
What, with regards to my passion for dogs?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, well, my passion for dogs started at a really young age, and unfortunately I was one of these kids growing up I grew up in the centre of London in a flat. My parents weren't willing for me to have a dog, and I understand why. They were both working every day. We had a family business that they were both involved in. I was in school all day, every day, and it was a case of, who is going to look after the dog when you're in school and we're in work? No, you're sorry, you can't have one. And that was at a very, very young age. I mean, I was dog mad from a small child. In fact, somewhere I've got a picture of me actually walking around, it was Ramsgate in Kent, where my parents had a boat. I think as a really small kid, before I'd even taken dogs out for a walk, I used to have an old-fashioned Kleenex box on a piece of string, and I'd drag it round the pavement behind me, and that was my dog.
Oh, gosh.
But no, we quickly moved on from that to basically walking everybody's dogs on the marina. If there was a boat there with a dog on it, was a case of, excuse me, can I take your dog for a walk, please? And it didn't matter the weather or whatever, but I was literally dog mad. I just wanted to be out with dogs.
And I take it your parents brought you up to be very hardworking. They brought you up well to...
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is, I mean, even as a kid, I mean, I thought I was taught right from wrong and stuff like that. But as I was saying to somebody the other week, if I look back on my younger childhood, growing up, going down to the boat on a weekend and stuff like that, at sort of 5 and 6 years old, I'd be getting off the boat in the morning and saying to Mum and Dad, oh, I'll see you later. And I'd either be disappearing in a dinghy that I had and going and getting up to things in that, or I would be, as I said, literally going around the marina and saying to people, can I take your dog for a walk? And I could walk then just round the back of the harbour onto the beach. And that's where I'd walk these dogs a lot of the time. In fact, to be honest, I spent more time with dogs than I did with other kids.
So that's other people's dogs. So what was your, so could you tell us what your first dog was?
My first dog was a Doberman called Rufus. I bought Rufus, I was 17 years old. I was about a couple of months after I passed my driving test. And I remember sitting in the office in London, looking through Exchange and Mart, saw an advert for this 18-month-old Doberman. I thought, that looks nice. Phoned the people up, arranged to go and see it, jumped in the car after work with some money, didn't say anything to my parents, just off I went. Came back a few hours later, having driven down to near Aldermaston with said Doberman in the back of the car, and took him into the house, and my parents gave me a bit of a frosty reception because I hadn't asked them, and it was like, well, you know, what's the dog doing here? Well, it's my dog. Oh, well, you know, we didn't sign up to this. Well, sorry, but if the dog moves, I'm moving. Anyway, cut a long story short, didn't happen. The following day, I took the dog to the office with me, and that's where he went. Well, he was with me literally 24/7 for all the years that I had him.
And you were in your late teens then?
Yeah, 17 I was when I bought the dog.
And he was the first dog that you sort of started getting into teaching protection work, is that right?
Yeah, totally, and I did it all the wrong way. I mean, he was the first dog. I mean, I'd done bits of basic obedience with other people's dogs and whatever stuff that I would read in books and whatever. But protection work, I was clueless effectively, and I look back and I think, how the hell did that dog end up so good? And even by what I know now, I look back on Rufus, and okay, he wouldn't have been a showstopper in terms of you wouldn't have gone and won events with him. You know, he wasn't show obedience or sport type protection, but he was a formidable beast. As a friend of mine would testify, because I didn't have sleeves and stuff in those days. So when I say I taught it all the wrong way, it was magazines wrapped round a pal's arm that were gaffer taped around together and a anorak over the top of that. And that was, I suppose, my crude variation on what would now be called a concealed sleeve.
Sounds like a proper dependable friend.
Oh, it was proper dependable friend. You know, he saved my bacon a few times, but he also became, I mean, the business that we had was right in the centre of the West End in London, in Marylebone High Street. It was in the clothing trade. We used to do repairs and alterations on clothing, and secretaries, for one, used to bring their bosses' stuff in to get it altered and other things, and they'd come in and they'd see the dog, and the dog would make a big fuss of them, and they typically called in a couple of times a week afterwards with a bit of their sandwich and whatever, and the dog was like a celebrity in Marylebone High Street. Awesome dog, and that was that. And Rufus really was, I think the thing that sort of ignited my interest, if you like, in protection dogs. They definitely weren't commercialised all those years ago. And Rufus sadly died when I was in my late 20s, by which time I bought the factory in South Wales, which is what first brought me to Wales.
Right.
And that was that. I think about 28 I was when Rufus was put down.
So, and then to start that, it was, so in the beginning, it was friends and family that were asking you to help with training with their dogs? Was that what first got you going?
Yeah, I moved down to South Wales. I bought the house that I still live in to this day. And I was living with Gaynor at the time, and Gaynor and I, we were both dog mad. I met a chap called Bill Anders, who was ex-Royal Army Veterinary Corps trainer. He helped a lot. He was a guy who had lots of experience and no money.
Yeah.
Through the business interests I had, even as sort of late 20s, early 30s, I was doing reasonably well, so money wasn't so much an issue. Setting things up gave me the ability to, you know, pump money into something that, if you like, was a hobby.
And was he the one who sort of started your training program? Where did you first get your ideas around how you would develop what now is your standardised training program?
Oh, Bill definitely, and unfortunately he died about 3 years ago, but Bill was a big influence on that. He really was. And I was also fortunate. I met some other long-serving police officers, dog handlers, etc., police dog instructors. There were a couple of other guys who I knew who were from military backgrounds, who again helped me mould the training methods that we currently use today. I also worked with a couple of very talented sport dog trainers. You know, people often listen to me talking about sports dogs, and I've got no problem with sports dogs. I think properly trained sports dog is great to watch. I just don't think they are particularly effective when it comes to actual proper full-on protection. But there are definitely things that can be taken from all spheres. And as I said to you when you first joined me, which is what, about 18 months ago, and I said to you, Lee, be a sponge. Do what I did, you know, sponge up all the information that you can, the bits that are worth retaining, hold on to, the other bits just archive them. Maybe they won't be any use, maybe they will be, who knows, you know, every dog's different.
So that was obviously the start of the A1K9 business around the early 90s. Is that right? And you were
About
in your late
93, I think it was. So when was I born? 64, so I would have been, what, 29, probably coming up 30.
And through the first, I know probably a lot of people who would first get into this, what were some of the standout hurdles that you came across when you first started to get the business going to help you get the word out there to people and to build the facilities that you've got today?
Well, again, I mean, I can run through this quite quickly. I mean, when I first started with Gaynor, we started with about 3 or 4 kennels down at the house. And I was literally training dogs for people who I knew, friends and family,
Yeah.
friends of friends. And then I started advertising in Exchange and Mart, which was quite a popular publication in those days. Then when websites came about, I set a website up. My first website, I've actually probably got a screenshot of it somewhere. I'll fish it out for a future one of these things, and people can see how things have evolved. You know, it was a bit crude, but it worked. And from Exchange and Mart, I used to get lots and lots of phone calls, for the simple reason being protection dogs in the UK were a fairly new thing. We were one of, at the time, only 2 people in the UK selling protection dogs, and we are unquestionably the oldest established, 100% for sure. I can say that without fear of contradiction. The other company that used to be around in those days ceased to be around a few years ago, so we are definitely the oldest ones out there. But it's been an interesting journey. You know, it started as a hobby. I still regard it for me very much as a hobby. You know,
It's your dedication every day to.
Yeah, I'm 7 days a week, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I'm just sad. People keep telling me about this thing called work-life balance. All the youngsters are on about these days. Don't even know what work-life balance is.
Probably not. So you've made some quite good relationships with breeders all across the world. After a few years of having the business going, you made quite a good connection with a breeder in the Czech Republic, Genopo.
Yeah.
That's quite a good relationship you've got there. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I mean, well, let me go backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
Before I started dealing with Genopo, most of the dogs that I was buying within the UK here. And I would literally do thousands of miles driving around the country looking at individual dogs.
Right.
Well, that's a bit of a thankless task, for the simple reason being a lot of the people who were advertising dogs, you know, that they needed to get rid of because they had a change of circumstances or whatever. I had some great dogs, don't get me wrong, but there was a big miss rate. You know, so in other words, I could drive 5 or 6 hours and not come back with a dog.
So that was one of your biggest struggles.
That
to
was
start with
was
then,
to try and to
sourcing
find the right dogs.
Mm.
A friend of mine suggested that I spoke to Genopo over in Czech,
Right.
and at that time the pet passport scheme had just, you know, sort of really started or whatever. I'm going back probably 20 odd years ago. And I spoke to Peter over in Czech, who I still deal with to this day, and his dad was involved in the business then. His dad sadly died during COVID. And from that, I put together a really nice arrangement with them whereby I said, look, you know, I'll buy any of the dogs, your older dogs, as long as they're health tested, this, that, and everything else, and they're up to doing what I do. This is what the dogs have got to fit with, i.e. in the main going to families, so they've got to have a definite off switch, they've got a great temperament, but they've got to be able to work. And we're talking about dogs that really come from the Czech border patrol dog lines. You know, this is where Jiri, his father, first started their breeding program from. So that kind of revolutionized what I was doing here. And then I was dealing with another place in former East Germany. And I would go there and we would literally take a big dog trailer over there, or a couple of vans, and you would get a load of people turn up to this chap's training ground, all looking to sell me their dogs.
Right.
And I got some great dogs from there as well.
So you obviously went for the standard of dogs you were training and providing obviously improved then?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, again, this is a business, and you know this in the time that you've been here, you know, what we do has to reflect the changes in crime as well. And dare I say it, some of the dogs that, you know, that we would have sold years ago, what I would have today regarded them as almost deterrent dogs.
Right.
I don't sell deterrent dogs these days because you're putting the dog in an impossible position because crime has really toughened up. And as the crime's toughened up, the ability of the dog has to be greater.
So also then your training methods and things you've included in your protection training have changed quite considerably.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. And what's it? Can you just one standout thing that you've changed from the beginning? Maybe like your eureka moment of I'm doing that wrong. Let's change this.
Well, one of the things, look, I'm always learning, and I always say that to people. I'm 62 now. Let's get this right. So I've been training dogs now for best part of 45 years. If I go back to when I first had Rufus, right, and if I go back even further to when I was a little kid, probably over 50 years, right. But I suppose one of the things that stand out to me, I mean, the UK police, for example, as part of their training, they've always done this, they train what they call a standoff, right? Within sport, it's referred to as a bark and hold.
Right.
Dog comes, you maintain your position, you stay more or less motionless as far as the dog is concerned. Dog's woof, 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 woof in front of you. And I've never liked training a standoff, because I think the dog is sat there in front of the person like a sitting target, especially in this day and age where people are walking around with machetes and knives and more inclined to be going out and committing crimes, carrying weapons. So I was over in Holland, I'm like a few years ago now, and I was looking at some KMPV training because I buy a lot of the Malinois in Holland, as you know. And I noticed, hang on a second, these dogs are barking up at people, but they're barking up from behind the person. Thought to myself, how the hell didn't I ever work that one out? And it was a case of I just saw it and I thought, why don't I utilise that? Very difficult to stab a dog or something behind you, whereas if you're got a dog barking, just bouncing in front of you, you've got a knife in your right hand, it's very easy to shove the knife into it.
So you've had a lot of trainers here over the years, Charles. What do you do about teaching your trainers about how you want to train your dogs? And making sure that everybody's doing what you expect of them?
Look, I think the answer is, without making it sound like I'm a complete control freak, which I try not to be, I worked out a long time ago that I'm probably better off bringing people in here who either have been maybe working with dogs before, who are open-minded, like yourself, and maybe upskilling them, rather than taking people who are maybe ex-forces, whether it be police, military or whatever, because unfortunately, if you get used to doing something a certain way for long enough, it's very difficult then to break that habit. And as a good friend of mine who is a police dog instructor would tell you, and he's going to be coming on one of my pre-recorded podcasts in the not too distant future, but he would be the first to say to you, Charles, I can train a police dog. I wouldn't know where to start training a dog for family protection. Because it's not just about the training, it's about identifying the correct dog. That's one of the biggest things, you know, a security dog, a police dog or whatever. Yeah, it needs to have skills, but one of our family protection dogs almost needs more skills because it's got to be as tough as the other two, probably tougher because it hasn't got the backup.
And how do you keep your trainers?
How do I keep them?
How do you keep your trainers up to date with all the different changes and things? I mean, I take it you take a lot of time to sit around with people and talk about what their knowledge is, what they're doing with their training, things that they're struggling with. I take it you sit down with them and talk these things through to come up with good solutions from your experience, which obviously helps improve them as well, which is obviously shown with Reese and Tamsin recently being qualified by the Guild of Dog Trainers.
Yeah, Reese and Tams are both now being given their master trainer instructor tickets by the Guild of Dog Trainers, which is lovely. You know, I'm always one for banging on about qualifications not being the be all and end all. They're nice to have, but the beauty of what they've got there is that was done entirely on experience, time served. You know, Reese has worked alongside me for about 10 years now. Tams has been here over 4 and was doing some dog training before she came here and did animal management things before that. But you know, the fact of it is, I'm up there 7 days a week, as you know. These days, you know, my days of putting bite suits on and stuff like that, not for me anymore, not at 62, thanks very much. I've been chewed enough times in a bite suit to see me through my next lifetime, never mind about this one. So I tend to spend most of my time these days troubleshooting. So if one of the guys up there gets a problem, maybe they're scratching their head thinking, what do I do to rectify this or to achieve that? Sometimes, more often than not, they'll say to me, what do you think on this, Charles? And they tap into my grey matter.
Because really, you're a very modest man, Charles. Your qualifications really are quite extensive with all the different institutes. Should you just tell the people
that I can talk
a short list?
I can talk about my qualifications, but let me just tell you, my favourite expression, right? People often refer to me as a dog expert. And it's nice that people say nice things about you and whatever, but I always tell them there's only one expert. It's got 4 legs and a tail. It's called a dog. The rest of us are still guessing at it. But yeah, over the years, I've been training dogs now since I was 17 when I had Rufus and was around them from before that. But about 20, I'm trying to think, probably 25 years ago now, I was given full membership of the British Institute of Professional Dog Trainers. A couple of years after that, I became an assessor for their security division, and I still am. I think I'm probably one of their oldest security dog and handler assessors. We're an accredited training centre here at A1K9. I'm also an assessor for the National Training Inspector of Professional Dog Users, and I'm a master trainer instructor with the Guild of Dog Trainers, and there's probably going to be something else to add to that list coming up in the not too distant future as well. So, but I've been about a little bit.
And these aren't just qualifications you get off the internet, are they?
No,
They're
definitely
years
not.
of experience.
I'm not a fan of these qualifications you get off the internet. Like anything that you can learn in my book is good, right? Anything that improves your dog knowledge, good. But you need to couple that with hands-on experience with dogs. And if without the hands-on,
a lot of these new trainers aren't
haven't got it.
unfortunately able to experience.
No, they haven't got it. It's lovely knowing the theory, But guess what? I'd rather know the practical and be unsure of the theory. If the practical works and it's not cruel and it gets results, as far as I'm concerned, I'll stick with the practical over the theory any day of the week.
Yeah, it's great to feed off the experience and the knowledge you've got. It's brilliant.
Look, at the end of the day, I turn around and say to people, I haven't got the answers to everything. And I wish there were other people out there within the industry, dog training industry as a whole now. You cannot be an expert in every field. So, you know, if you want to use the term expert, I suppose my expertise really is in obedience and protection dogs. That's what I've been doing for all these years. You know, I've also had a home office drugs license here. We were training drugs dogs for a while. I had an ex-South Wales police officer here working alongside me. But one thing that I will never do is I won't turn around and say I'm an expert in everything dog related, because that's BS. And I don't do BS. And I just think that, you know, people should level up and they should know their limitations. So if somebody said to me, Charles, I want you to train me an assistance dog, sorry, can't train an assistance dog for you. Got an idea how it's done. Certainly not an expert at it, but there are people out there better qualified to do it than I am. Go and talk to one of them. Unfortunately, a lot of people within the dog training world, they don't know how to say no. If they think there's, you know, a few shillings in it, they're all over it. Me, I'd rather not be all over it and retain my credibility.
Good. So A1K9 moving forwards in the future, do you have any visions of new things that will be coming for the business in the next 5 years, more ideas?
Well, I think one of the ideas is going to be literally doing more stuff on YouTube, some of the videos that we're planning on putting out there. You know, I mean, this pre-recorded one that we're doing today, other than being a tester for the equipment or whatever, is something you were saying to me, people keep asking, well, what's your backstory, Charles? Well, here we are. I hope I've enlightened a few people. But, you know, for me, it's been an interesting journey. I love working with dogs. I love what I do at A1K9. It's the only thing I do now. My other businesses, and I had a few of them, I've sold off, got rid of. So the only thing I've got now to keep me busy, occupied and whatever is A1K9 and things dog related. And for me, I don't feel it's like work because I enjoy what I do. Yeah, it has its rubbish times and whatever, the same as anything does. But, you know, I've been very, very fortunate over the years. You know, I've had the ability to actually turn my hobby into a not bad little business. If I had my time again, would I do it differently? Yeah, I might do some of it slightly differently, but I think the end result would have probably ended up around about the same. And moving forwards, well, just hope we keep moving on to bigger and better things. But rather than be the biggest, which I think we are anyway, I'd rather be regarded as the best.
Well, I have to say, Charles, it's been a privilege for me to sit down here and have a chat with you today about this.
Well, I thank you for that, Lee. I wouldn't say it's a privilege. We sit down and chat a lot, and especially on our lives, we're always there. What is it like somebody said the other week, the two old guys sat on the couch. I don't know, it's a bit unfair on you calling you an old guy. Me, I am an old guy. Well, I say old. Mind you, I was told mine 60 is the new 40, somebody told me, so there we are.
Hopefully I'm not 60 then.
Yeah. YouTube this week, OnlyFans next week.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
This time next year we'll be rich.
Anyway, been an absolute pleasure. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed it. Do keep tuned in for further things coming from A1K9, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Oh yeah, and by the way, if you have liked it, Kira's just told me, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. We need the subscribers, because guess what, when we get the subscribers, you never know, YouTube might pay a few shillings, and that will enable us to buy better gear.
And provide better videos.
And provide even better videos. So there we go. But all jokes aside, I hope you've enjoyed it, and give it a thumbs up, subscribe to us, check us out on all our socials. And more importantly, if you need any help with your dogs, please give us a call.